Hi there. Over the past several months, we have all witnessed a barrage of information and news associated with toxic work culture. Well, a toxic work culture is a modern day reality, and unfortunately, several organizations, if not all, have been victimized by a toxic work culture. The result? You have employees who feel mentally exhausted, harassed, sometimes taking them to the brink of even committing suicide and ending their own life. So, what is it that we can do to deal with a toxic work culture? First and foremost, it's important for us to understand what constitutes a toxic work culture. A toxic work culture could be a culmination of bad behavior at the workplace, harassment, abuse, mental torture, sometimes unending supply of work, which makes someone feel that they have nothing else to do in life but to work, work, and work. So the point is that we have to learn to deal with the toxic work culture because there is no end to a toxic work culture anytime soon. So we got to have our own strategies, our own mechanism to deal with it. So what can we do about it? So here are a few tools and tips that you may want to use just in case you happen to be at the receiving end of a toxic work culture. The first thing you need to do is to confront a toxic culture. Now, what does that mean? Now, I'm not saying that you'll be individually able to change the entire culture of an organization, but the moment you find that people are misbehaving with you or demanding too much from you, then you have a right to say no. The good old no is a very, very useful tool. Now, unfortunately, especially early in your career, a lot of people cannot muster the courage to say no to work, and therefore they find themselves constantly immersed under the mountain of work. But the fact is, you got to ask yourself, is this amount of work justified for an individual to perform? And if it's not, then you have every right to say no. Of course, if you find that the work that has been given to you is beyond one's capacity, then you can also talk to your manager or the concerned person and negotiate the terms of work. Because if you're not happy doing the work that you're going to do, you will end up doing a shoddy job. So it's important, therefore, that you ask for work which is going to allow you the time to complete that work. And too much of work all the time, or if you're thinking about work all the time, or you're finding yourself doing it all the time, then perhaps there is a need for you to put an end to it. So confronting toxicity at the workplace is important. Sometimes it could also happen that people might yell at you or people might put you down during meetings, during group discussions, or during other forums. So if you're not happy with it, it's important for you to let them know about it. At times, we tend to assume that people will grow up, people will learn, but they might not even know how you're feeling about it. So unless you let people know how you exactly feel about the situation at hand, people might not be able to comprehend your situation. So the first important thing is for you to start confronting toxic behavior, whether it is from an individual or from a group of people. The next thing you've got to learn and start doing is to find your support system. Now, what is a support system? The support system might involve a mechanism that exists within your team. So, for example, if you are facing toxic behavior from some people, then you might want to go back to your manager and talk about it. Sometimes you got to have an individual who will listen to your situation and will try and guide you out of the problem. So it could be an individual, it could be a mechanism, it could be a system that you find in your team that could be a helping hand for you, especially when you are confronting toxic behavior. Now, why is it important for you to find a support system? Because when you have a support system, you get an opportunity to vacate your mind. Now, unfortunately, a lot of adults tend to believe that if you ask for support, then it tends to make others believe that you're not self-sufficient. But contrary to that belief, it's important to ask for support because unless you ask for support, it would be difficult for people to assess the situation at your end. So whenever you find yourself in a messy situation like this, go and ask for support. It could be your manager, it could be a senior colleague, or it could be someone else in the system. And that brings us to point number 3. That if you don't see that there is a support system available to you, you got to talk to the HR department of your company, which is the human resource department. Now, all responsible organizations will ensure that through the human resource department, they are in a position to help their people. Now, you might wonder whether an HR department will always explicitly talk about it. Sometimes it could be a part of the policy of the organization, and a department may not explicitly talk about the rules and regulations associated with dealing with unruly behavior or toxicity at the workplace. But nonetheless, whether you're sure or not, talk to the HR department, ask them what is it that you're expected to do in case you find yourself surrounded with toxicity. Now, you might also sometimes get that information from the HR department. Sometimes, if there are no rules, then it will compel the organization to frame rules around it. So you might begin a small initiative which might snowball itself into a much needed code of conduct at the workplace. So don't be hesitant to ask for the help from the HR department if you need that at any point in time. Number 4, and this is a very, very important point, always prioritize your mental health. Now, if you find that the amount of work or the nature of work, or for that matter, the way people behave with you at the workplace, whatever it might be, is negatively impacting your mental health, you've got to take a pause, which means that you've got to have your own systems in place to deal with toxicity. Sometimes what you think is toxicity might be the predominant way or style of working at that particular workplace. So you might have to take a pause and ask yourself, is this something that I enjoy doing, or is this something which is taking a mental toll or sometimes even physical toll on my health? Now, one of the things you could do with this, you've got to practice mindfulness. You can practice meditation. Sometimes taking a small vacation or a mini vacation could also allow you the chance to reflect upon the situation at hand and ask yourself, is this something that you would like to do for the next few years of your life, or would you rather do something else, right? So it's important for you to always prioritize your mental health. Unfortunately, a lot of people do not prioritize mental health, and that's where they suddenly break down. You've got to take a break before you break down, not after you've had a breakdown. So if you find that whatever work you do or the kind of people that you work with is having a negative impact on your health, as well as is adversely affecting your mental peace of mind, then you've got to pause. You've got to say no. You've got to learn to overcome that particular situation and deal with it upfront and proactively. Last but not the least, you try all of this and nothing works, then sometimes it might be even important for you to plan your exit strategy. Now, you might say, well, it's easier said than done. Absolutely. There are EMIs to pay. There are bills that we need to pay. And therefore, all of us often tend to prioritize our financial necessities over our mental and physical health. But ask yourself a very honest question. Is anything that you do at work more important than your life? Perhaps the answer is no, because whatever you do has to give you value, has to give you peace of mind, and most importantly, has to make you feel that you are worth something. So if the job at hand is taking away these fundamental necessities of life from you, it's not going to allow you to live a life of happiness and holistic enjoyment and fulfillment. So if you find that your job is robbing you of quality of life, then perhaps there is no shame in calling it quits and looking for an opportunity at some other organization. And I'm not talking about knee-jerk reactions. I'm talking about a thoughtful exit strategy, which means if you're not happy with the way things are, try to improve them. And in spite of all your efforts, if you still do not see any kind of improvement in the scenario, then you need to have your second thoughts of whether you want to continue with this organization or you want to look for some other place where you might find a healthy climate where your skills will get the opportunity to nurture and flourish. So those are a few things that you've got to watch out for. Having said that, toxic work environments are on the rise. And therefore, you've got to do everything possible to protect your self-interest and at the same time to make sure that you always prioritize the quality of life rather than just the quantity of work. And if you do that consistently well, you will be able to have not only a successful career, but at the end of the day, you'll be able to remain happy and enhance your health and peace of mind as well. Thank you so much for listening.